DOS, as in MS-DOS.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, hands up in the chat if that's even possible. If you remember the days where you used to have your base memory and you used to have to try and load a mouse driver into it and the game and everything
Base
else.
memory,
Yep.
Extended memory. There's a
And you
few
had to
others. You
manage
had to have
that.
a floppy disk for each setup for each game because the
Yeah.
memory was different. Because in the early days, Microsoft decided that no one would ever need more than 64K of memory. It would just never happen.
That was trial and tribulation. I remember scouring the internet as it was back then for a mouse driver that was 1 kilobyte smaller than than the one I was using, because that's all I needed. Of course, if I was a bit more skilled, I think I was about 8 at the time, but if I was a bit more skilled, maybe it's something I could have written. But no, I couldn't even do that today.
Yeah, there was some crazy stuff you had to do back then. It reminds me of a thing I saw on YouTube on the design decision that almost broke the original Prince of Persia, like back in the 80s. Prince of Persia back in the day was an amazing technical achievement because it squeezed every single byte of available memory to make a game. And what broke it was when he decided, you know what, my colleague is right, I need to put NPCs in, and he didn't have the memory. So he made an antagonist and bit shifted the graphics, which is just brilliant. Like he just shifted the values over, and now you have an antagonist.
It basically inverted the color, so he was all in white, and obviously the antagonist was all in black.
Yep.
And that sort of it's almost a shame. I find I've always found through creative experience that when you're limited, you're probably at your most creative. Whether it's memory bound or the tools you have in front of you, you often come up with very creative solutions. Many years ago, when I was probably about 12, I didn't have a great set of instruments, VSTs, that you could plug in and have massive orchestral sounds. The best I had was I had a sound blaster, and I can't remember what they call them, but you could load your the instrumpets. That's the one. I just caught what you said. But you had to sound banks, and I remember getting Prodigy and sampling it way back in the day, sampling each bit and then playing back and remixing the track using my MIDI keyboard at the time.
I mean, at the risk of sounding like old farts, just remembering Sound Blaster cards, because the built-in sound for your PC was the speaker.
The little it's not really a speaker though, was
the
it?
one
it
that
was,
gives the system beep. When
yeah, the beep.
And you could make it play other sounds if you wanted to waste the RAM on it, and people would make it speak, but it was so distorted that it was just a gimmick, right? So then you would have to buy a special sound card, which now you don't have to do. And then you have to set up the drivers for your Sound Blaster, which is the one that Creative Sound Blaster was the big one. But it wasn't until the late 90s that you could play more than one sound at a time.
Yes, which is called polyphony.
Gravis Ultrasounds, Creative Sound Blaster.
Yeah, I remember if you got it's a bit like the early days of graphics cards as well.
On the Spectrum. Oh, Dad, you're killing me. I loved that game.
Yeah, I started my life on I played with my brother's Spectrums, but I started with the Amiga 500, and I kid you not, and I probably have got the size slightly wrong, but I had the plug-in RAM that was 512 kilobytes that was about this big. It's crazy.
I started in 82 on the ZX Spectrum with 16K, and then the 48K came out, which was what everyone was renting games for. So I had to buy my dad had to buy a 32K memory plug-in, which slots at the back of the machine, and would fall out if you press the keyboard hard enough, because you had rubber keys, and the keyboard was the main computer. So if you press it down, it would just unplug things.
Where's my memory gone? Where's my 32K?
So that's memory lane. I feel like that's quite a nice little memory lane thing.